Welcome to Podcast 83, a regular look at the news, stories, and trends related to Michigan's 83 counties from the Michigan Association of Counties.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Podcast 83, the podcast put on by the Michigan Association of Counties. With the change in the legislature in the new year, Happy New Year to everyone. Happy New Year, Amy and Sam.
Happy New Year, Steve.
Back. It's okay. Yeah, thanks. Change in the legislature, we're going to change gears a little bit and do a little bit more of an informative podcast rather than just pound you with legislative or policy issues. Specifically, we're going to talk a little bit about opioid settlement funds and what we're doing here at the association to help counties out with these funds. Of course, we've got Sam Gibson, who's one of our legislative staff here who handles the Health and Human Services Committee, where they've done a lot of work and discussion on the opioid settlement, not only recently, but past through the years. And I think you all know Sam because Sam's been with our team now for about 5 months or so. But we do have a new member of our staff here, Amy Dolinky is with us. She is going to be working us specifically with the opioid settlement funds. And quickly, Amy, why don't you give us a quick self-introduction there, and then we'll kind of get into some of the highlights of the work you're going to be doing.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. So currently my title is a technical advisor on opioid settlement funds planning and capacity building. But prior to this role, I managed a national overdose program with the CDC Foundation. And prior to that, worked as the senior advisor for Michigan's opioid strategy with MDHHS. And even before that, was doing strategic planning around substance use at the county government level.
Yeah, so as you can tell, not only does Amy have a very large title, but she has a lot of experience in this area as well. So we're really excited as staff to have Amy on board to kind of help us and help you folks out as we start embarking on this journey of receiving these funds and using these funds as effectively as possible. So first up, why don't you talk a little bit about the opioid settlement funds and what you first think is important for counties to know, Amy?
Yeah, I think the key piece to keep in mind here is that these funds have less restrictions than many of the other dollars that come into counties, whether through the state or federal sources, really providing an opportunity for innovation and really funding some of those activities that may not be able to be funded through those other sources. And with an overdose environment that is constantly changing, we know that the dominant substance used is changing, and the environment in which we're working is constantly changing. I think it provides a great opportunity to focus on prevention, harm reduction, treatment, and recovery.
Great. And then, of course, the all-important question that everyone's wondering, let's talk about the settlement funds and how many different settlements are there, where they're coming from, when do we expect them? How about an overview on that?
So the two largest settlements, the J&J and distributor settlements, those will bring in around $776 million to the state, with 50% of those dollars going to state government and 50% going to local governments. And the funding for those, the state has received some dollars for those, and the McKinsey settlement as well, which will not see going to locals. Some of that money has come in, but currently is held up in terms of locals getting those dollars due to an ongoing dispute. But counties can expect to see dollars from those settlements as soon as that dispute is resolved. There are numerous other settlements that the state has signed on to, specifically Walmart, Teva, Allergan, and some others that we do anticipate seeing dollars from, like Purdue and Mallinckrodt. And then outstanding ones of Walgreens and CVS. And so we do have a tracker now on the Michigan Association of Counties website that will be updated on a monthly basis to allow folks to see where we're at in the process and the amount of dollars going to county government.
Right, and that's micounties.org, just in case you forgot what our website is. Now, Sam, there is a little bit of bump in the road on some of these funds due to a dispute from a county. You want to talk a little bit about that? Obviously there's a county out there that has disputed how these funds are going to be distributed. Can you talk a little bit about that process, or at least what we know? Because I think there's still some confusion there too.
Sure. So we did have a county, the first in the nation actually, to dispute the dollar amount they are to receive from the distributor settlement. Unfortunately, the Attorney General's office at this time doesn't have fully laid out plan for how they're going to respond to the dispute. It looks like at this time, it's going to have to go through the court system. Depending on what the ruling is, the allocation percentage for each local unit of government could change if the county who disputed is awarded additional dollars. Don't really have a timeline as to when that ruling will be. So with that in mind, hold tight on receiving the settlement dollars. I believe that notice for payment 2 has been sent out. I know some were wondering why that notice was received without the dollars being sent from payment 1. So the AG's office, they're trying to figure that out. Again, I think the ultimate decision is going to come from the court system.
And we still don't, no time frame on that, even when the court may rule or anything. Okay. All right.
No, unfortunately, we don't.
Okay. Well, we've talked a little bit about this, the settlement funds, potential when funding may or may not occur. What about reporting requirements when we do get these funds? Amy, you want to talk a little bit about what the reporting requirements will look like?
So there will be some different reporting requirements for the J&J and distributor settlements. That reporting is only required through the payment portal. But for other settlements that we don't have all of the information on yet, we do anticipate different reporting requirements. But either way, counties can expect to see surveys that go out on an annual basis, capturing that information, and then also the public really seeking transparency on these dollars.
So the good news is that while it does seem like there might be multiple reporting requirements for different types of funds, the good news is that we have some resources available here to help folks out, correct?
Absolutely. So part of my role, the key piece of my role really is around technical assistance, from anything from strategic planning to accountability, monitoring, those different components. And so really paying attention to what folks may be expecting in those surveys in terms of dollars spent, strategies those dollars were spent on, different folks that were engaged in the planning process. So things that folks may be wondering about in what may be incorporated into those surveys that will probably come from numerous organizations and potentially the state as well, seeking to gather that information to really understand the full impact of these dollars across the state, not just on items that the state is spending.
And that's great. That's something we're happy to provide counties. We've got Amy on board. Her support for everyone is free of charge. There's no charge from us for you to use those resources, especially for those counties that may not be receiving a lot of money. There may be some thought as to, I'm getting a small amount. What do I do with this? Any suggestions on that initially?
I think the key piece is to remember that we didn't end up in this crisis in 1 year, and that the strategies that we can create with these funds really should take into account the long-term nature of resolving this crisis. And so being able to identify what can be built on over time, what existing programs may need additional support, and really looking at those places where, again, funds cannot be utilized from other funding sources. So while it may not seem like a lot on the front end or on an annual basis, really that long-term impact and building the sustainability and building in solutions that really address the underlying causes of substance use, I think, are key.
Yeah, some great information. So I appreciate both your time. Sam, did you have anything you wanted to add before we wrap up?
I do want to add that committee applications are due on January 13th, right? Or is it the 14th?
15th.
Second guessing.
15th.
Okay. Just want to remind everyone of that. So if you're interested in participating in these conversations, the HHS committee, which as Steve mentioned, I staff that one. So please send those over to Dina. You can find the application on our website, micounties.org.
Great. Yeah. And you can email those applications right to Dina at bosworth@micounties.org. Thank you, both of you. I know Amy had a rough night last night, some bats flying around her house, but she pulled it together very nicely today. So thank you, Amy. You did a great job for your first MAC podcast. Round of applause, everyone. Thank you. Good job. Good job.
Thank
But thank you again. And we want to be a resource for everyone out there. So please feel free to contact our office, go to our website. We have a whole resource page and there'll be a toolkit. Toolkit's not done yet, right? We're still finalizing the toolkit, right, Amy?
Correct. So we do anticipate releasing the toolkit the end of January, which is a guide for local spending, which will then have some other documents from other organizations and the Opioid Advisory Commission that will be coming out in February and March.
Yeah, so a lot more information will be in that toolkit. But in the meantime, if you do have questions, already a few counties have already started reaching out to Amy, and she's already been able to help them out with questions on some of the things that are coming in already. So again, thank you, both of you. Welcome on board, Amy. And thanks again for being on Podcast 83. We'll talk to everyone soon. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Podcast 83.